For Hype Plus News, I'm Ramil Thompson. In social psychology, a stereotype is defined as a generalized belief about a particular category of people and are the reasons of prejudicial attitudes. Do all black people like to drink Hennessy? Of course not. But the targeted marketing ads and the overrepresentation in hip-hop would sure make it seem like that. The history of Hennessy and its relationship to the black community far precedes the 1990s and 2000s, but goes back to the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, where it was one of the few liquors that marketed to black people without using racist caricatures. It seemed like Hennessy knew they were marketing to people with buying power, as opposed to the majority of consumers during that time. Most other liquors marketed towards white people at the expense of everyone else. Through research, we discovered that Hennessy's tactic of targeting the black audience would form a relationship that has lasted decades. Here's why black people love Hennessy, a story you should know. When explaining the relationship of Hennessy and African Americans, you must first explain its history. In the 16th century, Dutch merchants would distill their wine by soaking it in oak barrels, calling it burnt wine or brandywine, where the name brandy comes from. It was Richard Hennessy who founded the Hennessy Cognac Distillery in 1765 after learning how to trade. There was a lot of money to be made trading alcohol, as it wasn't just popular with French consumers, but the British Empire as a whole, which led to a cognac boom in the 1760s. Hennessy would end up expanding its customer base after shipping the product to London, Dublin, and Flanders. By the 1840s, Hennessy became the world's leading exporter of brandy. During this time, whiskey had been one of the most popular alcohols of choice in the United States since the American Revolution. Those companies often used racist imagery in their advertising, depicting characters of black people that we now find offensive. Christine Sismondo, author of America Walks Into a Bar, which discusses the relationship between bars and progressive movements in American history, detailed the marketing tactics of whiskey companies during World War II. Almost every whiskey company would have been really trying to sell largely to a white clientele. There would have been informal policies to not sell to the African American community. Certainly, the fact that you were using such absolutely culturally offensive stereotypes on the advertising would have reinforced that. You know, Jack Daniels was named specifically after one person, and he's sort of posited as this individual genius who came up with the charcoal filtration in order to make this really pure whiskey. And you know, there's probably a bit of truth to that, but charcoal filtration seems to also have had a longer history that extended into slave communities as well. Enter Nearest Green, an enslaved man in Lynchburg, Tennessee, who would end up using charcoal filtration in his whiskey recipe. That recipe was soon stolen or applied by Jack Daniel, who would later become the founder of America's top-selling whiskey worldwide, Jack Daniels, but that's a story for another day. When black soldiers returned home from Europe with newfound knowledge and experiences, they opted for cognac over whiskey. With soldiers fighting for a country that treated them as if they didn't belong and feeling like they're more appreciated overseas than in America, cognac has slowly become the drink of choice for blacks. Bianca Holman, a journalist who reported on the connection between Hennessy and hip-hop, detailed how Hennessy became a fixture among African Americans. If you think about the soldiers coming back and having been exposed to different things around the world and cognac, especially in France and Europe, you're like, oh wow, if Uncle Charles is bringing this back and drinking this, and he's international, he's traveled, he's a respected person in our family, this must be it. So I think those habits just began to trickle on down. What happened next was word of mouth. When soldiers would come back home from fighting World War II, they passed the brandy along to friends and family, which spread around. According to Holman, it took a while for those companies to see the African American community as a viable market. It wasn't until Herb Douglas, who had just won the bronze medal in the long jump in the 1948 Summer Olympics, was hired to work for Hennessy in the 1960s. After his athletic career ended, Douglas became vice president of urban marketing for Hennessy that same decade. It was Douglas who suggested Hennessy advertise in black publications, which included Ebony and Jet magazine. They were one of the first to really have authentic and genuine advertisements in those publications. Their advertisements weren't these stereotypical caricatures. An ad that sticks out for me is there's this guy standing at the door of his lady friend's house, and it's like, oh, you kinda came over for a cocktail, and he's holding the bottle of Hennessy, and they're dressed really nice and clean and cut, and it's like, oh yeah, that could be my postal worker, or that could be the guy at my church or something. These people that they had in their ads looked normal and regular and like something that was real to the everyday person. These advertisements, in addition to being the first ever corporate sponsor of the NAACP, in addition to having Nas, Erykah Badu, Josephine Baker, and Rihanna as brand ambassadors, also contributes to Hennessy becoming the alcohol for African Americans. Hennessy's investment in Black communities seems to be paying off. In 2019, the brand created the Hennessy Fellowship Program in partnership with the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, which is a $10 million program centered on the development of young Black corporate and economic leaders. They've also launched several other programs which have a focus on Black history and the arts. Over the decades, Hennessy has formed trust among the Black community through these programs. An article in Medium titled, "How Hennessy Found a Home in the Black Community," asked the company about its position in the Black community. Hennessy's response said, "Hennessy works with many diverse cultural icons such as Nas and Erykah Badu, who push the limits of potential and never stop, never settle. Their stories inspire us, and we hope that by celebrating their accomplishments, we are encouraging others to strive to break barriers. Hennessy continues to serve as an active participant in the African American community. We consistently support civic organizations as well as initiatives that help bring resources together for community development." The article would go on to note that although there is no question about Hennessy's investment in the Black community, Black people have no financial stake or ownership in the company, despite its use of Black people in their marketing and advertising. In the same article, Jasmine Daly, co-owner of Halftime Sports Bar, would elaborate. "I wish Hennessy was ours, but it's not. We can claim it, like all Black people drink Hennessy the most, but I don't know of anybody having any big stock in it. When Douce came out, a lot of people were supporting it because of Jay-Z. It has risen in popularity, but it's not nearly supported like Hennessy, and I would love to see it do that. Douce is way more supportive of Black bars. I like that a Black person is involved." Despite its initial popularity, beginning in the 1990s, sales for cognac were slow. Suddenly, cognac began being referenced in pop culture, peaking in 2001 with the hit song "Pass the Courvoisier" by Busta Rhymes. The popularity of the song caused sales of Courvoisier to jump 30%. Many consider this the peak of cognac's popularity with Black people. However, Hennessy's start within hip-hop would actually start well before then. In 1992, Tupac would record a song titled Hennessy, but the song wouldn't be released for another decade in 2004, which was part of his posthumous album, Loyal to the Game. The song served as an ode to the alcoholic beverage. Hip-hop artists are trendsetters. People who listen to hip-hop are attracted to glamorous parts of the artist's lifestyle, and liquor is a part of that. In 2015, Hennessy would capitalize on their base by naming Nas as a brand ambassador in order to celebrate their 250th anniversary. Whether it's Busta Rhymes and Pharrell, Tupac, Snoop Dogg, Cardi B, or Drake, Hennessy has become a staple in hip-hop, which has directly affected its sales. We all know Black people continuously drive trends when it comes to clothing, music, beauty, and other forms of media. Throughout the years, Hennessy has picked up branding ambassadors that include rap and R&B legends like Nas and Erykah Badu, along with ads that don't demean or degrade its audience, and endorsements from today's popular rap artists are why the brand has been so successful in the Black community. With a buying power that's projected to reach $1.8 trillion in 2024, Black people's support of Hennessy has led it to becoming one of the top-selling spirits in 2022. Stay up to date with the latest news in comedy, music, sports, and culture by subscribing here to our YouTube channel, follow Hype Plus across all social media, and look out for original content on our new streaming service. For Hype Plus News, I'm Ramil Thompson.
Now, did you know that? Because I definitely didn't. And here's the thing, we got more stories like this when you're a member at hypersclub.com. Being a member of the Hypers Club means you're the first to get access to these exclusive moments. The only way to see is to join the hype.